Hi class, last week we talked about the mortise and tenon joint, and I showed you how to use the bench top mortiser to do the mortise. So we were able to cut a slot into the side of a board. Today I'm going to teach you how to do a dovetail jig. And in order to do that, you need a dovetail jig. And I got this one from Harbor Freight last summer. Never got a chance to set it up properly until now. Some of the things that you'll need when you get ready to do this: first of all, you're going to need a router. You're obviously going to need the jig that I talked about, but you're also going to need the router. You're going to need a dovetail jig or a dovetail router bit, and it's a 1/4 inch bit. It's got a 1/4 inch shaft, and then it flares out at the top. And we end up, the depth of this is very critical. You're going to want a 1/2 inch from this point to the base, so that's the depth that you want to cut. And you're also going to need a template guide to go on the router base. What's going to happen is, as we go around this jig, this guide is going to it's going to guide itself around up against the metal there, and as you can see, it's not going to be able to, that'll keep the blade from cutting into the metal. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the jig itself. There's a lot going on here, so it can get a little bit confusing. You have the guide plate here, and you have, these are lockdown bars to lock down the boards. I'll show you in a minute how those work. And these knobs are for rough adjustment, and then this, once you get the setting close, you can clamp it down with these. This bar here is what stops the router base, so it controls the depth of cut into the one sideboard. So I'm going to go ahead and set these boards in here so that you can see how this works. There's also a stop here, and there's a stop on the front here, if you look right there. And basically, when I put this board in the top, and this is a little tight, this board's a little thicker than the last one, so I'm just going to back these out a little bit so I can slip this in. Want to do it evenly so the pressure's even all the way across. Gonna go ahead, and once it's a little snug, I'll probably do about a 1/2 turn away from the snug point so this can slip inside here. Okay, and then it's going to butt up against here, so I'll lift this up, I'll slide it in. This is going to hold it square. I'm going to push it out. Okay, in a little bit I'm going to go ahead and lock it down with this, but we'll go ahead and put the front piece in first as well. Now, it's best if these parts are all cut square. I think they are. I don't have a saw here at home right now to straighten things up, so if it's not perfect, we're going to have to just live with it for today. In the shop, you'd be able to make sure these are square. This is squared up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this up until it hits those teeth. I'm going to lock it down. This recess here is going to be set a 1/2 inch. This board is going to be offset a 1/2 inch in from this board. And the reason that we do that is, if you notice, after I routed these, as I put that together, this lines up flush here. And that was routed like so. So now let's go ahead and try to route it. You always want to remember that when you route something, you want to keep your base flat on the surface that you're routing. And if you were to, say for instance, if you went on this table and you tipped it up like this bit will hit that metal and cut into it. You want to make sure that that guide plate there runs up against the jig, not the bit. Okay, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to just set the edge of it onto here, and my first pass, I'm going to go ahead and clean up this outer edge. If I go all the way in and out, it can chip out this back side. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean up this side here first, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go into each of these teeth. So now notice I went ahead and cleaned that up. It did chip out a little bit right there, but when I went in here and I routed, as you notice, I went all the way and rode along that edge until it hit that stop. Now this collet, or this guide plate, is actually a little bit smaller than the gap there, so you have to make sure to stay tight against one edge first and then push it over and keep it tight against the other edge as you're going back. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and complete the route. As you can see, when I routed this, I pretty much did it with one hand, and I held this base, or this jig, and I went around it this way. Part of the reason I did that is because this is not mounted to a workbench. If we had it in the shop, we'd probably have it mounted to a workbench, and it would be really nice and secure. If that was the case, I would probably use one of the bigger routers with the handles on the side, so it'd be a little bit more stable for you. But this will work just fine. I think though, for somebody with a little less experience, it'd probably be a little safer to use a bigger router. Next, we're going to take these out. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this, and then we'll go ahead and release this, and we'll pull this one out. Blow it off, get the dirt or the dust out of there, and then let's see how this lines up. Let's see if we can get these to go together. But this gives you an idea of what to do. It is complicated to set up, and you'd probably want to use several different test pieces to get it right. But that's what a dovetail joint looks like. If you put some wood glue in there and push it in, it's going to be a really strong joint.